Professor Hayer, time is yours.
Thank you very much for your kind invitation and for the introduction. I hope the connection via the internet is stable enough, and I'm happy to talk a little bit about the collaboration and the research that we jointly did with several universities in Indonesia. And the first part I will spend on some data evaluations that we could do with the BPGS, and we used the BPGS data actually to investigate the current status of your country regarding the Sustainable Development Goals and especially the universal health coverage. We focused a lot on the availability, accessibility, affordability, and acceptability. What is not really a part of the data in the insurance is quality of care, but probably one of my next speakers will talk about this topic. So why is it so important to talk about cervical or cancer in general? The cancer incidence in Indonesia is not that high in the moment, and also the mortality rates are not that high in the moment. This is especially due to the demographic development. But if you look at the predictions, then you can see that in this decade, the number of inhabitants in your country that will reach we call it the cancer age, so 65 and above, will roughly double. So cancer will become a very important topic, and I know that your Ministry of Health and all the other institutions are fully aware of these things. But this means that we have to deal, or your country has to deal with several challenges. The first one is that the availability of structures need to be improved and adapted to what is required for cancer. This especially means the primary care for screening and early detection, and the high-end care level A and B hospitals, especially for the cancer treatment. But, and this is very important and something where I can show you some data, how important it is, you need to organize other types of referrals than they are implemented right now because of the special requirements for oncology. And last but not least, and this I will show you at least some data at the end, is that your population needs to be, we call it, trained for cancer literacy. This means that they really need to get somehow adjusted to what is required for cancer, because we face a lot of implementation barriers in all countries in the world, and cancer is always a very difficult topic to talk about with the population and with the involved patients. So we have on one side the patients that are seeking health care, and on the other side we have, and this is what is the problem with cancer, is a very high vulnerability that they are not getting sufficient health care due to many different reasons. And these reasons can be summarized, and I won't go into all these details right now, but you have individual reasons, you have management reasons, availability, and so on. And this can be investigated either from the individual perspective of the patient or from the public perspective of the population, as usually the governments are doing. We had the chance, as I mentioned, to analyze the BPGS data, and we tried to evaluate them to draw conclusions regarding the regional development in cancer care. For this evaluation, we defined the provinces that you have in two different types. We clustered them by a statistical approach that I won't explain in detail right now. But the first one was that we clustered regarding the demographic characteristics, where we put in aspects like the percentage of rural population, the percentage of poor population, and so on. And the other clustering was done according to the available healthcare resources, which means availability of nurses and general practitioners, availability of hospitals, and this always, all these numbers were adjusted to the population that is available so that we can differentiate between the more the 3T provinces and the others. And taking these analytical steps, we clustered these the provinces that we can really look what was happening at that time regarding the cancer care according to these BPGS data. And the first point that we found out, and this is actually not surprising, but here we could show it in a very detailed manner, is that we have differences between the PBI and the non-PBI members in the insurance. The differences were throughout many different characteristics, and I want to show you here a few of them. The first one, we called it the primary healthcare utilization rate, which means where we compared the FKTP insurance data regarding the capitation and non-capitation requirements. Then we did a very similar analysis regarding the advanced healthcare, which was more or less the hospital-based cancer care. So we used the FKRTL data. And the last one was that we compared the advanced and the primary care, and this was considered as a referral index, which means how many patients were treated at primary care compared to the advanced care. And if you look at the figure on the left, on the right side, then you can see that for all indicators, we found relatively large differences between the two groups of insurance members. So PBI was always different from the non-PBI member group. And this was true, and I don't know if you can see my arrow. This was true for all three types of clusters that we found. So this was not related to the distribution, but it was a phenomenon that could be seen throughout the country. The second point is that we also found, and this is also not surprising, but here we can show it very clearly, that you have, of course, differences in the usage rates between the different types of provinces. So in the remote and high poor provinces, the usage rate is lower, especially in with primary care. And if you have more resources available, and if you are going to the non-remote provinces, then the usage rate is, of course, as expected, much higher than in the other provinces. And vice versa, the referral rates are going down. So that if you have the remote area, the referral is relatively low. So referral here is these are the referral rates, and if the availability of advanced care is higher, then the referral rates are going up. So if we take all these data together, then you can actually see that referral and availability of the resources is very important for the real life of cancer care. And this actually led to a phenomenon that we called migration for cancer treatment. Migration means that the patients from one province moved to another province to get their cancer care. And then we looked where the patients were coming from and what were the provinces that mainly did the cancer care. And here on this chart, you can see that especially the provinces where the rural areas and the remote areas are more prominent, from there, the patients had to move to other provinces and vice versa. You see that you have two real hotspots where a large majority of the patients from external provinces are going to get their cancer care. And this is actually mainly limited to two metropolitan areas. One, and this is relatively clear, is Jakarta because of the surrounding districts that do not belong to the area, but they are, of course, covering the cancer care. And the other one was, to me, a little bit surprising, and to my partners, it was very nice because they were located in Yogyakarta. And the province of Yogyakarta also is the second most important recipient of cancer care. So looking at the numbers, in Jakarta, 40% of the patients that were treated for cancer did not come from Jakarta province itself. And in Jogja, it was also almost 20% of the patients came from other provinces. So this means that these two provinces really have to take care and have to provide the infrastructure and everything and the processes that are far beyond their own requirements for the immediate population of the province. So we looked what are the determinants of this migration and the population coverage. And here you can see a tree analysis, and this tree analysis actually this shows you that the most important determinant of the primary care coverage is the demographic province. So our clusters actually that we extracted from the data, our clusters really work well in dividing the requirements for development. And so the demography is really something that you have to consider in the development of the resources. And the second most important point for the primary care is the availability of the human resources. And this is actually determined by two professional groups. One is the general practitioners, but the other one is are the nurses. And there is a little bit phenomenon where you have to look at in detail. So as expected, if general practitioners are available, then you can see here, then the primary care is getting better. There is an opposite picture for the nurses, and this you can explain if only nurses are available, then they have to take care on the primary care. And this is actually relatively clear if you look at the regional distribution of the general practitioners. So the major point is that the primary care, the primary cancer care really depends on the availability of general practitioners. And if they are not available, this primary care has to be done by the nurses, which is for sure not the best solution. In a similar way, you can look at the advanced health care, and here we have the availability of class A hospitals per population. So this was normalized for population, and the availability of this type of hospitals is pretty clear, the determinant of advanced healthcare for cancer. The second level is again given by the numbers of physicians. So if physicians are available, the advanced care is again more prominent. And then you can see the migration. This is what I have shown you in the last slides. Migration for cancer treatment. So referral from one province to the other is also a very high factor that need to be considered. So if the patients have to migrate and have the chance to migrate, then they will get more treatment. If the migration is, or if the availability of resources that is not available in their own province is also not available to get in other provinces because of long distances and so on, then the advanced care is also getting very low. And the last one, and this is just a confirmation of Class A, if Class B hospitals are also available, then you even have a better chance to get good coverage for cancer. So taking these information and this analysis together means that the major focus for cancer care, as always, and this is not actually limited to cancer care, is that the most important challenge for Indonesia is to get the right patient at the right time to the right service structure. And so especially regarding the direct usage of the advanced healthcare. This is one of the problems, but I don't have time right now to show you these evaluations, but just to mention it, at least in primary care usage, you have a huge problem still that many patients are going directly to the structures of advanced care, which and circumvent primary care probably for several reasons. But this is a problem where the healthcare system in Indonesia really has to take care of due to overload of the advanced care structures with cases that do not belong there. In the last few minutes, I want to show you, since this session here, this conference is dedicated to breast and cervical cancer, I want to show you some of our results, the preliminary results of our so-called INDO-CIRCA trial. We are almost at the end of this trial, and so some of the data I can present. So cervical cancer, as you know, is one of the top 5 in your country, and about 17% of the cancer cases in your country are coming from the cervical cancer. So we did our trial in the pilot region of Yogyakarta, and we covered actually the entire district of Kulon Progo. So 21 puskesmas were involved, and overall we recruited 2,100 women in this trial, which was supposed to investigate early detection based on the HPV screening. And so we divided these groups into the rural and the non-rural puskesmas, and we sampled actually by puskesmas the 2,100 using 4 different devices, and here are the preliminary results. So 2 devices were using the swabs, and the other 2 were using actually a urine-based self-sampling. Before the patients did a self-sampling, we asked them to, or actually not the patients, they're still not the patients, the woman. So we asked the woman to fill out a questionnaire, and this questionnaire was dealing with a lot of topics regarding understanding, restrictions, acceptability, and all these things. So the questionnaire is not evaluated yet, so I can show you the data only during the next conference. But what we know is that one of these 4 self-sampling devices was not really working, and this was the Urisponge device. And we are pretty sure that the reason was the amount of urine that was sampled, and the way it was sampled is not really proper enough to collect the cells in the first void urine. But all the other 3, and this was very good, especially to decide by your government how you should, what would be a way to implement this type of early screening, is that the other 3 are more or less working in a very similar way. So both swab-based self-sampling devices and the other urine, the Colli-P urine device, they all have a very good detection rates. And so we actually could have a validation rate of more than 90 to 95%. And validation means that we could find human cells in the swabs, and that the human DNA was within the samples, and this proved that we could detect also the HPV or DNA in a proper way. So it means that more than 90% of the tests were really working, which is a very good rate for such kind of tests. And overall, we found, and this was a little bit surprising, overall we found that the prevalence of HPV in the population, and again, this was a representative population or representative sample of the population for the entire province, the entire district of Kulonprogo. So the detection rate was only 2.5%, which is much lower than we know from other countries, but it is known that in Asia, especially in Southeast Asia, and all the other studies, for example, in Cambodia, we know similar studies. So in your geographic area, the prevalence seems to be lower than it is in the rest of the world. And this means that the implementation of these programs may be adapted to these numbers, but we are not sure if this is really representative for the entire population. So we will try to make a follow-up trial in different regions to compare if this is really very low, or if this is just a regional phenomenon of Eastern Java or Central Java region. And here you can also see a few preliminary evaluations. We evaluated more than 2,000 already, so only very few are still in testing. So you can see that swab and urine-based tests were pretty similar. And again, rural and urban prevalence was also very similar. And we do not expect significant differences. Also, the statistics were not done yet. So overall, we identified 34 women where we had HPV positive results. And this was mainly as expected. About 1/3 was attributed to the high-risk HPV types, so HPV 60 and 18. And we have some clinical evaluations already available. So all the positive women were clinically evaluated by colposcopy by experienced gynecologists. And we found that a proportion of 10, so almost roughly 1/3 of the HPV positive woman was positive for the thin lesions, and this is in the expected range. So overall, we expect 20 to 30% as thin or high thin lesions. So this is actually what we had to expect. The HPV negative group, we will do a selection of 100 women. This is still something that is under investigation. And here we see one of the implementation problems that we will also analyze using the data and our questionnaires, but we have no data yet. So it is very difficult to convince the woman to get the second step of the screening. So even here in this group, few women refused to come to the further diagnostic approaches, and for the negative group, the rate is probably even higher because they are afraid of the clinical consequences.
I'm sorry, Prof. 5 minutes more.
I don't need 5 minutes more. I am at the end. So thank you for your attention. And I hope if you have any questions or at the end, I hope it will stay online and will be available.